You know what time it is. Welcome to the Trinity Force podcast. Optimus Tom, resident AP, plays mid and his styles are shady. Got a syndrome, can't nerf it. You can find him in the chat, type of worth it. And that's Hornet, stuck in evil hell. Thought it was going up, once again it fell. Never spent a single dime on LOL, and if you step into his jungle, expect a brawl. All slander, math specialist, he's precise, doesn't tolerate estimates. The man's addicted by every hero, you can tell cause his bank account's stuck at zero. And last but not least, your host Pornophobia picks an 80 carry, and he's on ya. It's got the full mouth, ground and pound, don't get excited, it's not as sexy as it sounds. That's your whole team, enjoy the podcast. Put your headphones on, we'll have a blast. We're checking email and Twitter, of course. Just don't ask us how four guys make a Triforce.
Oh, guys, you are listening to the Trinity Force podcast. My name is Pornophobia. I am part of ggChronicle.com, and I am here with a great group of guys tonight. Drunk Optimus Tom is with me.
Not quite, but close.
Close Drunk Optimus Tom. Hornet AJC.
Close to being here. I'm in the opposite room.
That's right, with Optimus Mom. Tell Optimus Mom to come back here. I want her to put the headset on and talk to us.
That's fine. We have a podcast to do, sir.
Hornet AJC is here. He does not have the Pwnhawk tonight.
Nor will the Pwnhawk ever happen. I wish I was drunk. I'll tell you that.
And John Frank with the pseudo Pwnhawk.
John Frank, is that the new name for me? Okay, that's fine.
He's not Soter anymore. He's John Frank.
Soter, because I looked at your name and your name. You don't have your name as Soter in Skype, and I just looked down and I just kind of read across. Because it's just as easy to say John Frank as it is to say Soter. Still, nobody knows my real name, even though it's been said. So that's thankfully no one can Google me, because you would see some crazy pictures.
I'm Googling right now.
Googling
everybody.
Adam Cogswell.
Oh, bleeping that out in the final podcast. That is happening.
No, I hit the dump button.
That's right, hit the dump button. Beep beep.
Why does it pop up with your name as autocorrect in Google? That's what I'm afraid of.
Because there's an Adam Cogswell that's a singer, and there's an Adam Cogswell that's like super high profile or something.
I don't know, but this third picture is definitely you with the bowler hat on. I think it's definitely Pornophobia.
Yeah, exactly. Don't look up my name in Google, because you will see some very awful pictures of me.
Anyway,
guys. You guys, of course, as I said, listening to the Trinity Force podcast. If you guys haven't noticed, we actually released, it would be yesterday. Now that if you're listening to this tonight, it was today. If you're listening to tomorrow, it was yesterday. We released a new podcast series called Sheenprox. It's a 30-minute series of very quick, rapid-fire questions with a pro. We're releasing one a week. Last week, Sotir was on there with me. Unfortunately, Tom and Hornet could not join me for that. We had Hood Stomp on there, CLG Black's 80 carry, and we interviewed him about 80 carries, and it was a very good rapid-fire interview. We did, I think 18 questions or something, 15 questions. It was a lot of questions within a half an hour, and got a lot of great information out of him. And we're excited to bring you Bloodwater this week. He will be interviewed on Thursday, and I think we will be releasing the podcast either on Friday or Mondays. I haven't decided the exact day yet, but I know everyone's excited about that. I know you guys are as well.
Oh man, the thing is with Hood Stomp too, he's a very talkative guy, so I'm surprised you only gassed 18 questions. You didn't get a full hour-long interview with him where he just told you his entire backstory. Just talking to the guy on Skype and Twitter, he doesn't shut up. He's a fantastic dude. He's just really, really fun to talk to. So you guys definitely check out the Sheenprox interview.
Yeah, and I'm glad we have Sotir with us every week, because he brings the high elo. He's definitely played with him, probably in a couple games, I'm sure. So the insight of having a guy in the higher elo is fantastic as well. Mm-hmm. That's I'm giving you a compliment, Sotir. Take it. Run with it.
I was going to say, it's always a little bit sad when you do come across those high-elo players, or the professional players, you're like, oh, you're going to carry me so hard this game, and sometimes they don't. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to go any further into it.
I know. I had to cut a piece out of that podcast. I can't say about who it was about or anything, but there was a 5-minute piece of that I had to cut out because of some things that were said. So I will share it with the rest of the guys later.
Something tells me it was about a mandatory troll.
No, it was not about a Zingy.
I wasn't referencing that one, but okay.
It was about another pro player, and of course we are not here to besmirch pro players' names. No one is, and no one wants to say anything. And
no, that's my show. That's my show that does
that. Is League Nation, of course.
Yes.
I actually have a question for Hornet while I have him on the podcast now. With the recent news of Aframo leaving TSM Evo, who's going to be the favorite child of League Nation now?
Who's going to be
I think he will still be the favorite child of League Nation. Just because he isn't on that team doesn't mean he isn't the favorite child. However, Hoodstomp is slowly climbing into the ranks, and Rain Man coming back into the competitive scene has definitely given him some chances. So
I know.
It's
We
not
have
to say
to
there
have-
isn't competition for it.
We have to have the
Get
typical
started.
black guy. There's got to be a black guy for the podcast, and it's either Afremu or Hoodstomp. So
By the way,
I
I'm
didn't have to
waiting. I'm waiting for the non-white team because Marn actually asked Afremu if he wants to be on a real team. So I'm just saying that would be a combination that if they could put together would be fantastic.
that's
Just
awesome.
saying.
That's gonna. Yeah, that'll be fantastic. I can't wait for that.
Because seriously, if they put if they put a whole mix together, a great Asian, which you can find,
Nut win.
cover all the spreads, and I'll tell you what, you could probably make a pretty damn good team.
We could really turn this into League Nation really quickly. What would be your favorite team?
So easy.
What would be your favorite non-white team? Anyway, that's not what the Trinity Force podcast does. Save that for next Monday.
Hey, we're not the only ones playing video games anymore. Just saying.
Oh shit!
Oh man, you threw the guy off from Kentucky. That's impressive.
So Tyr looks so out of place right now. He's just kind of staring at the monitor like, oh my god.
Oh, he was on.
I feel above this. I feel like wrong place, wrong time. That's all I'm thinking over here. I had some serious topics that I wanted to delve into.
You know what?
guys have just
Take it, so Tyr.
thwarted me.
Give me a serious topic right now to talk about. We will walk right into this podcast with it. It is your floor.
I mean, running over from last weekend, we have to talk about the remakes, Twitch, Evelynn, and the new Xin Zhao. So I'm not sure who you want to start out with. I'll start out with Twitch. He seems good. The W is kind of annoying to use. The extra range is really nice. But I don't feel like he's going to be any more viable, except he's going to seem more viable as a bottom lane AD carry. But he still can't really trade with a lot of the high-end AD carries, and the stealth, now that it's very short-lived, doesn't give him the same roaming potential as before.
You don't feel that he's as good of a jungler or as good as a roamer as he was before because of the nerf on his W, or just the overall kit?
Both, yes. Essentially everything all together. I mean, the W beforehand was a great slow with about 1,000 range, and you didn't actually have to aim it, which is a big, big thing. And I feel like, I think he got a base damage nerf, which isn't great. His base numbers used to be really high, which made him, pretty viable in the top lane, but I think he's kind of falling out of viability in top lane, and won't be seeing quite as much in the jungle now. And you can see him bottom because he has that extra range, but how much is that really going to help? Is he really going to match up against a Graves down there, or an Ezreal, and those are the two you mainly see down there? I think he has issues in the current metagame, and I think Riot was kind of looking at this. How can we change these champions so they're interesting to play, but they're not really overpowered in any sense or really annoying in any sense? And I mean, I think they did a pretty good job. At least we're not gonna have to worry about Twitches roaming around everywhere, evading all those wards, coming up behind you to the same extent. But I also feel like that if you wanted to play that role, if that was kind of like your thing, that's been taken away from you. So.
I kind of feel like they nerfed Twitch's passive too. Didn't they nerf the amount of damage his actual poison deals?
They did. I think people who explained it. Oh, well, now that once you expunge, those those poison ticks don't go away, which is a pretty big deal. But I mean, it was an overall nerf there. So he's just not having the same amount of base damage early on, not the same amount of burst that he would have had beforehand. I mean, previously, if you took him in top lane, he was one of the highest damage dealers at level 1 and 2 because of his Q, because of his expunge as well.
I'm actually trying to look at it right now because we have a lot of champions that have damage over time passes that have been introduced recently. We have Darius, we have Draven, and now Twitch is getting a rework. With Twitch's passive, of course, like you said, the stacks don't disappear anymore when you expunge or if you use his W, the stacks will stay. I'm actually just looking up right now because I honestly don't know, and I'm just very, very curious in and of myself. Is Twitch's passive deal less damage now than Darius and Draven?
I don't know either, but I can certainly look it up.
I don't think it doesn't stack, does it? I don't think it stacks as high.
It stacks up to 6 times. Darius says it stacks up to 5 times. Darius at level 1, his passive will stack for 12 damage. Twitch is saying it stacks up to 2 damage. So that means that Twitch is going to be dealing 18 damage a second, and Darius is going to be dealing a lot more.
Well,
than
isn't
that.
his true damage? I thought the passive on Twitch was true damage.
Is
It
it?
is true damage. Yeah.
Mhm.
Deadly Venom
not
is true
telling
damage.
It actually
Yeah.
doesn't say. It just says that it deals
Are
damage.
you?
true.
I'm looking at it right now in the abilities, and it says Twitch's basic attacks inflict the target dealing true damage each second.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a little bit of viability against that than, say, a Draven or a Darius with their passive.
Right, which would be negated by armor instead of, I guess,
Or
health.
in Darius' case, magic resistance.
Right.
See, the one thing I wanted to, and so Terry, you can more comment on this, is the fact that what they said is they wanted his late game was always what had the potential. If he could get Twitch to late game, he could really just blow up. But it seemed like they said, at least, that they wanted the early and mid game to be more viable and that the late game would sort of even out. And yet, from what I'm hearing from both of you, that doesn't even sound right. Like, you're saying that it's overall, it feels like he's been nerfed, not nerfed, but not built any better, at least early to mid game.
Well, I think the point I was trying to make was, he can lane more effectively now that he has that extra 50 range, but that's he doesn't have the other options going top, going jungle quite as much as he used to before. He doesn't have that same presence that he did, and so his early game being better, depends on whether or not you're actually going to take him in that bottom lane, whether you're going to succeed in the bottom lane. And, just my initial impression is that you can't. I've seen, quite a few people try that so far. And I've tried that in the past. I didn't mind it so much because he used to have a lot of burst. But I think his burst has, a little bit come down since then. His trickiness come down a little bit. You can't hide around, forever. But, yeah, I also feel like, of course, his late game has always been great. If you could get people in a line for that spray and pray, he could, out-damage every other AD carry. But that has been brought down, time and time again. And I believe with these changes, too, the damage is reduced as it goes through people more. So, his ultimate late game hyper carry, highest potential damage seems to have come down as well.
It's really interesting because there's like a synergy going on where Twitch was one of the only characters that you could consider an AD carry that could really thrive in a different lane or in the jungle. Of course, we've seen, people like Westrice have been playing Corki or other AD carries like Vayne in the top lane for a little while. But Twitch is one of those characters that you could play in a jungle role, which you really couldn't play a Vayne or an Ashe or anyone like that in that specific role. Thing is now, with the Twitch reworks, they're trying to confine him to this fact that, okay, Twitch is an AD carry. How can we make Twitch better in the laning phase, and what can we do? And because of this, they've nerfed his endgame, where he was actually really, really viable if he was an AD carry. If you fed a Twitch, if you didn't play like Optimus Tom, you got real items instead of a Rage Blade, you actually did, like Soter said, one of the highest damages on an AD carry in the game. By trying to make him a better AD carry, they've actually nerfed his endgame, where AD carries are supposed to be, like, number one.
Yeah,
it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
Right.
I like the roaming Twitch meta for solo queue. It doesn't really work so much in pro games because pro games have much better map awareness, which we will get into later tonight, and have much more better awareness of what's surrounding them and where players are at. But I really liked the Twitch roaming meta before, and he was just so good at it. Now, kind of moving over into the Evelynn camp over here, going off of the games I played, Twitch does not get seen like Evelynn does, correct, when he's in stealth? Okay, so I don't understand when moving here again to the Evelynn, why they made Evelynn be seen when she's so close. She has stealth. They didn't give her a stun, but if they gave her a stun, she'd be like the hyper carry Evelynn of the past.
Okay. I have many, many notes I've taken down on Evelynn in my head, playing a couple games with her in the last couple days. Evelynn, when you played her beforehand, before the rework, she had a slow on the stealth. The stealth is an activated ability. You could choose to cancel it and wait in bushes. You could choose to activate it when you wanted to go in. People were forced to buy wards against you. When I first read Evelynn's passive, I was super excited because a lot of people who have come from Defense of the Ancients, you remember Ricky Maru. You remember the stealth assassin who at level 6 got permanent invisibility. And he had a 3-second, 2-second, like 1.5-second fade time on his invisibility. They didn't do that with Evelynn. What they did was they made somebody who tries to feel like when she is roaming around, you're like, where's Evelynn? When she pops up in the lane she's going to be in, though, everyone knows she's there. So in high-level play, in pro league play, even if you're playing like in the 1600 and up ELO ranks, when people are warding all these different brushes, Evelynn's not going to make a big difference. Like, people have been pink warding Dragon for ages now. People have been pink warding over by their own blue buffs. This negates the fact that Evelynn's going to be able to transition from lane to lane while being invisible. She's going to be seen regardless of this. The fact of the matter is, when she gets out of a bush to gank someone in lane, unless she lands the perfect ultimate and is able to run in there and try to deal as much burst damage as possible, she's not effective. She has no more slow. Her ultimate with an AoE slow sounds fantastic, but it's terrible. Like, just playing
she's too squishy to be in there to land it, and that's one of her problems.
The thing is, now with Evelynn, you look at her, she has hybrid ratios. You're like, oh, sweet, I can play her like an assassin, like a Kali. This is great. No, you can't, because she deals nothing then. She does absolutely nothing if you try to build her hybrid. The suggested item build, I think, is like a Wit's End and a Gunblade, which I actually did that one and then tried to do my own build. Nothing seems to work on Evelynn, whereas in the past, the bad Evelynn everybody wanted to be remade, who shred armor, shred magic resistance, had a slow and a movement speed buff, that in addition to this, instead of giving her this crappy shield that doesn't do anything in fights, restored her health. It was actually kind of frightening if Evelynn got fed. Now if Evelynn gets a couple kills, there's a game where I went 5-0 in Evelynn. We lost. I just wound up going like 6-11 because I couldn't do anything for the later stages of the game. She just has no potential past like 20-minute mark.
And even if you build her tanky, there's other people out there who can do it better than her. I think one of her biggest problems here is being seen when she's in stealth. And I'm going to keep going back to this because you need stealth to sneak up on somebody and slow them. Now, the Evelynn of the past, like the first make of Evelynn, had a stun, and that made her overpowered because you could stun somebody in middle lane, and you can't get out of the gank when you're stunned in middle lane. If you're stunned in the middle of the lane, you are dead. Now, they've taken rid of that. Now she became a useless champ. And now once again, she's an even more useless champ because of her the way everything's reworked. Yes, they made her better in the jungle because she regains mana. But when you're in lane and you're being seen in a bush before you can even gank because you have a ward in the bush and you're still stealthed, what do you have that none of the other characters have? You know what I'm saying? Nothing.
Nothing at all. And the thing is, too, playing Evelynn in the jungle, it's a worse version of Warwick. Warwick has been seen as like the character you want to learn the jungle as, and you hit level 6, you gank with his ultimate. Evelynn no longer has a slow. She has a movement speed steroid, and she has an attack speed steroid, which is okay. And she has an ability to reduce the crowd control on her from those slow effects, kind of like a Garen does. But what have we seen from Garen? Not a lot. Movement speed slow reduction doesn't do anything in the current metagame. You're worried about stuns. You're worried about other crowd control opportunities. If Evelynn's W reduced all crowd control by a certain percentage, I think should be a lot better, but she has no slows pre-level 6. She has no burst damage potential. She has nothing to make her a viable jungle character either. At least when you're playing Warwick, you know you're not going to be dealing a lot of burst damage. You're kind of sustaining, but you have that ultimate. Infinite Duress pops in, stick somebody in the middle of a lane like Pwn was talking about, something to set up for a gank. Evelynn has nothing to set up for a gank. Even at level 6, if she goes to land an ultimate, I believe the ultimate is the same range as her stealth, so if she gets too close, the enemy's going to see her while she's ultimating, just dodge it, and then fail gank.
Right, and no stun. You might as well play Warwick at that point, and you always might as well play Nautilus at any point in time. We've seen. I don't know if you watched like Stonewall's video today. He put up a video of Platinum Nautilus when he got his Platinum rank, and he walked in the middle lane with one other person with a Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate stunned him, and then it was dead because of Nautilus all the CC that he has. Why would you play Evelynn if you have no CC? I mean,
you wouldn't.
Yeah, I love watching Sotir's face as we talk about this because the entire time he's like agreeing, like you guys are taking all of my points and I could just rehash everything you said, but you guys are taking care of it.
I just want to throw in one note real quick. After Evelynn came out, I watched the 3-day, if you go to elobuff.com, I watched the 3-day solo queue rank for characters. Evelynn was either second to last or last for the past week since her remake has come out, and it's bad. It's like something like 6 or 7% below the 50% mark for wins, and that is like atrociously low. Like it's not even close to being like within range. Like normally it's plus or minus 2-3% usually. If you're gonna get like the top is like Rumble at 9%, which we'll get to in a little bit. But that's how bad she's doing, and like people are realizing just how the toolkit is just not working.
Poor Evelynn, just absolutely in a very bad spot.
She's still the placeholder.
She 100% still the placeholder. And now we thought Xin Zhao was the placeholder for the longest time, or maybe like a zillion. But Xin Zhao, his new rework has actually made him situationally very good.
Oh man, Xin Zhao is so powerful. Okay, first off, there's no better time for a Mulan reference when you challenge your opponent as a passive. That's just like the perfect thing. You just rush up to them, you're like, be a man, turn around and fight me. The best part about the Xin Zhao remake is it completely remakes Xin Zhao in the form of, when you play Xin Zhao, you are forced, do I go armor penetration? Do I go damage? Do I go attack speed? Do I go survivability? He has it built into his kit now. His W has a lot more life regeneration than his passive ever had. Of course, it's going to be scaling off ability power, which is good for ARAMs if you're going to have fun with that. It doesn't really do anything for competitive play, so really interesting little point right there. I think it has like a 0.6 ability power ratio. Just FYI, it's pretty ridiculous if you do get him an ARAM now. But playing on like a competitive level, having the extra survivability in his W, still having that attack speed steroid, the armor penetration in his passive, you can just play a tanky damaging top lane Xin Zhao or a tanky damaging jungle Xin Zhao, and he's going to do everything you could ever want from any Xin Zhao build in the past.
I've seen a lot of Guardsman Bob. He played him a lot in the first day he came out, and he was actually rushing. Well, he wasn't necessarily rushing it, but he'd get a Brutalizer first, and then he would eventually put that into a Ghostblade. One of the few characters, I know we talked about it in the past, that Ghostblade is a very situational item on a lot of characters, but it seems like Xin Zhao works off a Ghostblade very. He synergizes it with it very well, because after 3 attacks, when you pop his Q, you stun somebody or knock them up. And so the faster you get those 3 attacks out, the faster someone's going to be stunned and potentially taken out of the fight, because they can't do anything for a second. And having Ghostblade, you're able to stick on top of them, since you don't really have a slow unless you have a Phage. But he works so well with Ghostblade and Phage and Trinity Force. He synergizes completely with them.
One thing that people seem to forget about Xin Zhao is his E has an area of effect slow on it, which is ridiculous. Like, if you play him in the jungle, which we've seen St. Vicious playing a lot of him in the jungle, we've seen Rice playing him a lot in the top lane, so Curse apparently really likes the Xin Zhao and really likes being a man. But out of the jungle, like, the previous build on Xin Zhao in the jungle was to get a lot of points in your E. It wasn't necessarily for the fact that you could just go around and clearing camps because of the AoE damage and slow, but it was when you went into a lane, especially that bottom lane, if the support and the AD carry were next to each other and clumped up like that, or in a team fight, you were dealing devastating amounts of damage. Now you have that slow that you could proc onto as many champions are standing next to each other. You challenge the problem champion and knock everyone else away with your ultimate. His kit is just absolutely ridiculous for ganking right now. And, like, he's still Xin Zhao, so he's still a little squishy. He has a little bit better survivability for his jungle roots, for his laning phase, things like that. But he's not invincible like he was when he came out, like, the first time. Like, I don't know if you guys were around when Xin Zhao first came out, but I stopped playing for a week until they nerfed him, because it was just ridiculous. You pick Xin Zhao, you win the game. That's all it was. It was insane. So now he has, like, alludes to his former glory, but he's beatable, which makes him kind of this champion that people are afraid to try, but once we see a couple more pros picking him up, whether it be top lane or... I think jungle's really where he's going to shine, especially with his E, because that basically hasn't been touched. Only the thing is they added the challenge passive onto it, which makes it better. So I think we're going to see him a little bit more in the jungle than per se top lane. He's not bad in top lane. I just feel like his gank potential has yet to be tapped by some of the better junglers in the world, except for maybe St. Vicious.
I've seen St. Vicious play a lot of Hecarim recently, too. A lot of Hecarim in solo queue.
And Cho'Gath. Don't forget Cho'Gath.
I haven't seen the Cho'Gath yet, but I do not... I would not put it past St. Vicious to play any kind of Cho'Gath in the jungle. And I know a lot of people in the past have said Cho'Gath isn't a very good jungler because his Q is kind of hard to hit, but I guess once you're at that level and you've been playing those skill shots or the placement of the AoEs, it makes him... He's a fantastic jungler if you hit his Q.
The thing is with Cho'Gath too, if you count any of the IPL face-off tournament matches, when Curse was still in it, he was either playing exclusively Cho'Gath or Hecarim. That's what he was going through. He was just playing those characters. I think he played Nocturne once, yeah. So it was like he was like the St. Vicious show because you could do whatever he wanted and it was ridiculous. The only top people that shut him down were Team Dynamic because they were so aggressive. Cho'Gath couldn't handle it at level 1, and St. Vicious didn't know how to react because he loves going into the jungle and counter jungling.
So Tyr, you look like you had something to say.
No, I just wanted to go like this with my hands. I mean, like, obviously at higher level of play, you get better at landing your Qs, but people will get even better at dodging said Qs,
Right.
those ruptures. So, I mean, there's that. I had a jungle Cho'Gath in one of my games the other day. That did not go well. Like, there's a lot of fawning over Xin Zhao right now, but, you know, I'm like, what actually makes him so much better than he was before? And, you know, from a lot of the high elo players' perspective, it's, oh, you know, it's really nice that his ultimate has a knockback. You know, ideally his ultimate is going to give him more armor and magic resistance, but, I mean, it's actually it's not that clear. Like, early game, not really. Like, until he hits level 11, it's hard to say. He has to hit quite a few people to get, you know, the bonus. I think more than 3. I think at 3 it still would have been better with the previous scaling than it is now. So, I mean, certainly that's nice for later game, but, I mean, he still has the issues that he had before. I don't think he gets incredibly tanky. If he jumps into battle, he still blows up. And Audacious Charge actually has, you know, 50 less range, too. I mean, the one place that I remember him being, you know, more viable than, you know, any other place was in middle. And I remember Guardsman Bob running him, you know, for the longest of times in middle. And I'm sure we'll see that again. I haven't seen it. I haven't been watching the stream. But, you know, with the range being reduced by 50, that's not huge, but it is, you know, something. Like, now you'll be able to know Xin Zhao is coming for you. You know, if you're going into last hit or throw an auto attack or throw a spell down, he's not going to outrange you by that much, if at all, anymore.
I think the thing with Xin Zhao is with the nerf on his range, we've kind of seen a little more favoritism to non-sustained bottom lanes, especially in maybe double AP compositions in the mid and top lane while doing this. I'm referencing mainly to MLG last night. I don't want to give any spoilers away to what happened, but Orbit was running a lot of heavy double AP, as was Curse Gaming. In the bottom lane, Orbit had a very aggressive lane. Whether it was Ezreal paired with Soraka or Ezreal paired with Blitzcrank, the lane was constantly pushed all the way up to Curse's tower. So Cop and Elements are having a really, really hard time of moving out of their own tower range. With the range nerf on Xin Zhao's E and the popularity of these more aggressive bottom lanes rather than sustained bottom lanes, having those lane ganks for potential and really counter-warding your opponent's brush wards, Elements wasn't able to get a single ward in the brush. Every single time it did, it got pinked ward and it got killed. And there were a lot of brush ganks going down in the bottom lane. Even in top lane, brush ganks are really, really popular. Pushing out your lane, falling back, looking like you were going to recall and baiting your opponent forward a little bit, then the jungler coming out of the brush all of a sudden and taking them down, have been a lot more popular right now. And I think if you're playing Xin Zhao in a jungle kind of stance, that's where he's going to shine. He is super squishy. He's still going to be a champion where if you try to gank mid lane, you're going to get blown up by the enemy AP character before you get like super, super tanky and a lot of HP. But the thing is right now, you can build him like a lot of the popular junglers. You could probably build him with a Heart of Gold going into a Randuin's Omen. You might even be able to build a Philosopher's Stone on him, maybe even get a Shrelia's Reverie to try to mitigate that little bit of distance nerf that he got on his E. Just activate the Shrelia's, go in and engage. He is still not going to be super, super beefy like a Nautilus or someone out of the jungle like him. However, I think he's going to be one of those alternatives. You know, he doesn't have the dive potential that a Nocturne does, so he's not going to have favoritism over that in professional league play. He doesn't have the ability to really dive in like a Shyvana can as well, but he's going to be one of those champions where if you have an aggressive team composition, if you pick a jungle Xin Zhao who can kind of act as an off-tank, you know, referencing like all of a sudden World of Warcraft terminology, but if you have like an off-tank Xin Zhao who can pierce the armor and deal enough damage in the middle of a team fight, as well as that giant knockback, especially against like a Janna composition for your enemy team, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, see, you actually touched on what I was going to say, is that realistically, I don't think he gets to a carry as well as, you know, Nautilus, Malachi, Nocturne. You know, there's a whole series of champions I can think of that I feel like as a jungler, they can get to the carry better than Xin Zhao can. I feel like Xin Zhao, you know, yes, he's got 3 forms of CC. I do like that, but what Sotir said, his range and his Audacious Charge being nerfed, now it's harder, and he has to go through the middle. And if we've seen anything recently in a lot of comps, it's that we're starting to see, especially Karthus AoE comps, which are prevalent to no get out now, you're not going to get through that spot that Karthus is just owning around him. Because if Karthus dies, he's still dealing a shit ton of damage, and you're just not going to get to the carry where you need to. There's just great zoning. The Anivias do the same thing. There's that AP mid control a lot of times that prevents you from diving after a carry. And I think that's where he's just not going to be seen in competitive play. Now, I could be wrong. I've seen St. Vicious play. I think he could be a good pump stomper. I think he's similar to Darius in that effect, where I think his initial burst could really just mess with people, and he could snowball that way. But other than that, I'm not feeling that we're going to see him very high or in real high competitive play much at all.
Could we compare Xin Zhao to an Irelia in the sense they both have a charge to get to the carry? Now, my question for you guys is, I don't know this, is the Q, on Aurelia's Q, which is her dash, as well as Audace's charge, are those the same range? Does anyone know off the top of their head?
Her Q is 650.
Okay.
So hers is the range that his used to be.
Okay, so she would still, yes, of course, in her in top lane, she has more sustain than he does because she gains life back in every auto attack, while his is every third auto attack because of his W.
Although it's pretty close now.
Is it pretty close now with the amount of life that he gains back on his W compared to what she would gain back in 3 auto attacks?
Yeah, it depends, of course, how you level up. The thing is, with her, you tend to level up W. And I actually did see, I think Darian was playing Xin Zhao the other day, but he prioritized E over W, which I think seems to be the way to go as a solo laner anyway. So with Irelia, you're going to be, restoring more because of that's how you build her all the time, max W first. But if Xin Zhao did do that, he would actually be restoring, more passively, and just a tiny bit less when Irelia did actually activate her W.
Does somebody have the base stats up by chance between the two?
I'm looking right now to double check it, but it's taking a little while. My internet is not being as cooperative.
I have them up right now, so I can let you know.
Go for it.
I feel like Irelia has bigger base stats than
Irelia has 456 health plus 90 as compared to 445 plus 87. So Xin Zhao kind of loses out in that respect.
Okay.
Armor Xin Zhao has a little bit in his favor, at least for the first couple levels, 16.2 plus 3.7 to 15 plus 3.75. Attack speed, Irelia 0.665 plus 3.2% compared to the 0.672 plus 2.7%. So I guess Irelia would come ahead eventually there as well. And then attack damage 56 for both of them, and Irelia has a 0.2 advantage in the scaling there. So that's not too substantial.
What you're saying here, they sound kind of even in the fact that it's top lane, but I think Irelia is going to do more damage and sustain more, especially because you have the true damage on her W. You can trade much easier. I'm going to write an article about this eventually, but the other day I had an oh shit moment. Like, oh, this is how I play Irelia, where an Olaf would E me, do his true damage, and I would immediately E him back, which is a stun because I had less life than he did, and then W, proc my W, which does damage, and then Q to him. And now he has lower life than I do, and I run away. And suddenly the trade is in my favor, even though I've taken an E from him. And now Xin Zhao doesn't have that type of stun because he has to get 3 attacks in to get the stun, while hers is based on how much life. So I think Irelia wins out in this fact to me in the top lane, even though she's seen the number of nerfs.
There's a couple things you have to keep in count with this too. Irelia will probably come out superior in trades, but in gank potential, I think Xin Zhao would actually come out ahead. Looking at the health restored, Hitan style at level 2 will still be less than Xin Zhao's 3 attacks by 5 HP. It'll heal 21
is that
for Irelia.
Is that not proccing W or triggering W, activating W?
Not activating any skills whatsoever.
Okay, so all passive.
So, the passive on Xin Zhao's Battle Cry will heal him by 5 more HP and 3 attacks at level 1. And then Aurelia's Hitan Strike will at level 2. At level 3, Hitan Strike will become superior by 1 extra HP. However, you're also going to be maxing this as Irelia, so Xin Zhao is probably going to wind up losing out post-level 5 against Irelia because of this leveling up thing. The thing is, though, with Xin Zhao, he's going to have better gank potential because even though Irelia, yes, she is going to be able to stun somebody when she's at lower HP. Unless you bait them into this perfectly, Xin Zhao's E is always going to have a slow on it. So Xin Zhao, technically, you don't have to bait yourself into a lower HP situation where you could die to someone like an Olaf or a Darius that we've seen gain popularity in a top lane role where they can ultimate you down and all of a sudden you're dead, you can't do anything, true damage, you've taken a lot of stacks with the damage. Xin Zhao can initiate a fight and have the jungler come in afterwards, or Xin Zhao can offer that initial slow to let your top laner come in and finish off the fight with their own CC.
But
I mean, that's very debatable. Are you going to bring up the fact that Blade Search goes through, Okay, go ahead, Hornet. I'll let you go, but then I'll go.
Well, two things to this. One is Irelia's sustain and Irelia's tankiness is much better than Xin Zhao. We already know this. Mm-hmm. Two is that what is hit and style actually? Is it based off of attack damage? Does it improve, or does it improve off AP?
It's a flat
every
rate.
hit.
It's 5, 7, 9, 11, 13.
Okay, so it doesn't improve at all.
No, because it does true damage when you trigger it.
Okay. So
when it's active, you actually, instead of 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, it deals 10, 14, 18, 22, 26. Which 26 is how much Xin Zhao actually heals at level 1 with his W and 3 attacks.
Yeah, but that's 3 attacks.
That's 3 attacks, right?
Yeah,
and it's not every attack for 3 attacks. It's the third attack he heals for 26.
I mean, at level 5, Heaton Strike will heal as much as Xin Zhao's does at level 1 and 3 attacks, but Xin Zhao in 3 attacks at level 5 will deal 50. So that's like 2 auto attacks.
I feel like we need to make sure this is clear that Xin Zhao's heal is on every third attack. It's not every attack. It's every third attack. I just want to make that clear for anybody who may be that listening that doesn't understand what we're talking about.
And not only that, you do not often get 3 auto attacks in a well played game. I'm just saying, like there's a lot of times, even with, I mean, later in the game you can, but there's a lot of times where getting 3 attacks in is a little bit more difficult than you think.
Right.
Like the way it works.
Well, especially if you don't have the attack speed early, because he said it's 0.67. That's not even an attack in a second. It's not even a attack a second. It takes over 3 seconds to get 3 attacks in. To roll that. So, Tyr, do you want to piggyback off of what Hornet was saying earlier? Because you did, give him. The floor.
I had something else to talk about. I mean, we can look at that, but of course, Xin Zhao also has the bonus attack speed from his battle cry, which is, better steroid than Irelia is getting, outside of her true damage. So that's something to note. But insofar as, gank assisting, I still like Irelia quite a bit more, because the great thing about Irelia in Equilibrium Strike is the fact that you don't actually have to show your hand when someone is coming up to gank, because all the really good top laners in competitive play, they're like, oh, I noticed they're moving closer to me. I think they must have someone coming up for a gank. But with Irelia, you can, Blade Surge through a minion, and if you kill it, you can Blade Surge again. So suddenly your 650 range turned into 1300 range, and you can catch up to anyone, and they'll be completely unaware. So you don't have to move up into that 600 range where essentially every top laner would be like, wait, if I'm pushing as Xin Zhao in this lane, why are they walking closer to me? Why are they getting within 600 range to me? They don't need to do that, to last hit or whatever. So they kind of get that sixth sense that something is going awry. Whereas Irelia just kind of comes out of nowhere,
right?
And that is a great bonus of her. She's very sneaky in addition to having a good skill set and all that true damage and the ability to build defensive if she needs to, if she has to win that top lane.
She gets a slow too off her E. Like the normal proc and an E, if you're higher life, is a slow. So even if you're sneaky, you're more than likely going to have more life when you first initiate because the jungler's coming in. So you're going to get that slow, just like Xin Zhao has the slow. Tom brought it up earlier. Xin Zhao's going to be able to set up a gank easier. But now, since she's so sneaky, she jumps in there. Now you're slow. Jungler comes in, and you see where the gank goes from that point. So you either get a stun or you get a slow off it, and I think that works better than just having a slow. I mean, obviously dependent on, and you can even let yourself take some creep hits before the, there's points where the top lane will get pushed back. Like you sometimes want to let the top lane push back toward your tower. You can take creep hits as you're walking back to allow your life to drop more. You don't see it very often, but allow your life to try to drop more than theirs. So now when you queue in, you get that stun. Jungler comes in, and since Nautilus, it's almost permanent lockdown at that point.
Let me just say, all 3 of the champions, I don't think we're going to see in high play. I just don't.
No, not at all.
And that's pretty much what this whole conversation started as. Will we see these guys in tournament play? Probably not. I think we might see a Xin Zhao, maybe, but not like in a TSM versus CLG EU final, just to ring out 2 high-level teams.
I think it has to be the right comp.
Oh yeah.
You almost have to build around it in order to make that work, I think.
Sure.
Or if we see some sort of competition for some reason, a Nocturne has been banned out or counterpicked, and they banned out something like a Shyvana that has the equal amounts of die potential, Xin Zhao might not be a terrible pick in that circumstance either, if it fits the comp.
But still, what's Shyvana's ult? I mean, I don't think Shyvana's ult's nearly... It's, what, maybe 500? 400? I don't even know what it is. It's not that far.
The thing is, Shyvana's ultimate is going to disposition people by pulling them, which is the main effect.
But only if you're standing right next to them, or very close to them.
No. Once you get on top of them, the thing about it is, she does so much DPS.
Right.
As once she's in, between diving in, all the bonus steroids she gets from her ultimate, plus her W, and then the fact is that then she can double hit somebody and E in front of everybody, as a nice, she can proc all three of her abilities after she gets in with somebody, and she is, I want to say she's the highest DPS champion.
Yeah, burnout, twin fang, and then you got your E to melt armor.
Right, like once she's connected to somebody. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the actual stat.
That's the thing too. Like Xin Zhao she just seems inferior to the popular jungle choices that we have right now. Could we see him in competitive play? Like we said before, if he has the proper team composition, then he's gonna fit in like a glove, especially better than Evelynn or Twitchwood in these circumstances. But if there's an opportunity to see a Nocturne or a Shyvana rather than a Xin Zhao, we're probably going to see them instead. Even in Olaf, I mean, if we're going to continue about die potential, Olaf in the jungle has the ultimate that makes him pretty much better than Xin Zhao.
Riven, Udyr, Trundle. I mean, there's a lot of champions that have seen competitive play in the past that we don't see in the jungle anymore because there's better options. People rather go Nocturne, even Hecarim. Nautilus, of course, is kind of like the main example of the new kid on the block.
But Team Dynamic in Atlanta has been running Jungle Yi, who has 0 potential for any kind of stun.
By the way,
hold on.
Let's leave. That's a side thing, though. I mean, that's really hard for you to go by because he farms like a madman with that Yi. He is able to steal creep, and Sotir and I have talked about this. He steals creeps from lanes in order to actually get the farm he needs in order to be the hyper carry.
And that's a very risky strategy to run because now you're stealing farm from any of your carries. Just like we've talked about in the past, we've had an article about taking 2 CS every, I think, 2 creep waves or something for your support, and that gets very tricky. Right. Because now you've lost 30 gold every other wave or something.
Right.
And
I mean,
is it more than that?
Let's be honest. The meta for junglers most recently has been utility.
Right.
What utility do you bring that helps your team? Is it that's why Malachi, Nautilus, Nocturne is the only one that I can think of where the global, not only the global ultimate being an issue, but the dive potential is so good. He's the only one that really can build like massive damage to go with it. Like he can really put in some DPS once he gets to somebody. I don't see the rest of them. Maybe Lee Sin, but most of your utility carries are the ones that they're trying to be beefy, they're trying to disrupt, and they're trying to put really good ganks and get to the carry. That's what we've seen with the meta at least recently.
Oh, man.
I mean, I think Nautilus is, example of a jungle character that can do a lot of damage, but I think the great thing he brings to a team is utility-based. With that paranoia, he goes in and he can immediately connect to the AD carry, can stick on him, most likely get a fear off on him if he's running, smite, exhaust, can then exhaust the AD carry, and effectively take them out of the fight for a really long period of time, which none of the other junglers can really have that same luxury. They can't automatically get there. They normally have to take a lot of damage before they get there. So I think, yes, he does good damage, but I like it if he can also just run into a rando and Omen and then be like, okay, well they're feared, now their attack speed is slowed, and I'm just causing a lot of harassment in these back lines.
Now I'm disrupting everybody.
The one that I can say, the other one that I can say that can get there pretty quickly most of the time is Alistar. Alistar can get to that back line if need be.
Yes.
But normally with Alistar, you wanted to you want the game to be in your favor before it gets even to team fights. You want his gank potential early to really get where it needs to go in games. So
with Alistar, you are gambling that all your lanes are going to win based on your presence from being
right,
in
or
every
at least
single
two.
lane.
You want at least two
Correct.
to snowball your way. Yeah.
Correct. Now, I mean, I've been enjoying this conversation a bunch, but we have maybe 10, 15 minutes left in this podcast, and I really want to get to this next point.
It's gone really long, hasn't it?
Yes.
I was looking at the time. I was like, wow, I feel really tired. What? Oh, my gosh, it's almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah. I think we have about 10 minutes left until we hit an hour, and we like to stay, the Trinity Force podcast likes to stay at about an hour. I know we have everybody's always like, guys, do a 2-hour podcast. There's no way. We would just be so tired.
No, there is a way. It's just the fact that we would all be like, oh, fuck.
And we wouldn't have enough to talk about. Yeah.
Oh, no. You kidding me? Me and Soter would go on about hair care products. It'd be fantastic.
I can talk about hair care products with the Pwn Hawk.
This is
I'm
all
actually
natural. I don't know what you're talking about.
I want to point out to everybody, I'm also rocking the Pwn Hawk tonight because I felt like I needed to be very assertive and podcast oriented with tonight's broadcast.
Oh, that's actually, I like that. Thanks for the compliment, sir.
You're welcome.
Podcast oriented.
I have to ask
As
Sotir.
the only man in this conversation right now, and you all being a bunch of females talking about hair care products, I'm sorry, podcast listeners. This is bullshit.
Hey, this is a family-friendly show. Don't say those fucking words.
On to the voicemail, ladies and gentlemen.
Right before the voicemail, I have to ask, Sotir, is this what it's like in California? Is everything white? Your entire room is so white. Like, you have this white dresser, like, thing behind, not dresser, but this white, like, nightstand behind you. You have this black dresser. Like, it's so clean and white.
You know what? Growing up, it's always been like this, so I assume it's like this for everyone else.
Is that a phone charger plugged in behind you too? I see a one regular thing, and I see something else a little bit wider. That's a phone charger.
I think that's a fire hazard,
That is a phone
sir.
charger. Very perceptive.
Winner! You can tell a big box in the wall is a phone charger. Congratulations, Optimus Tom.
Yes, I'm so good at this game.
How can you even see that? That is very, very impressive.
Because your camera is very, very good, sir.
Listen, I see things that many people don't normally see, except for Monte Cristo's ring. Everybody sees that.
I was not going to say anything. I was going to go into it, but I didn't want to. No.
Bam!
Oh, call it about. Okay, now
Hold on. Let me phonophobia this one. Face.
face. that is Auslandering it, who didn't join us tonight.
That is Auslandering it right there.
Yeah. Okay, I want to roll this, guys. You guys have been sending us question after question after question. We've received a number of voicemails. We've received a
We will
number
get to them. We promise.
Yes.
It's not this podcast.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. We've received at least 5 different emails in the past 2 weeks, and we don't have time to get to them because there's just so much content out. I promise you, if you guys email us, we will get to your voicemails. We will get to your podcast
We're just going to have a show probably next week because I don't think there's going to be any major changes next week or any characters released or champions released that we have to worry about.
10
so next
o'clock,
week, let's
Zyra.
target this.
Zyra?
The new champion's being released about 10 o'clock tonight. So
Tja.
about 10 o'clock, Pacific time, so 10 o'clock Sotir's time. No, 7 o'clock Sotir's time, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I apologize.
Sure.
So that would be
terrible time for a patch. Are they really doing that?
Yeah, they
Anyways,
are.
Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
At least it's not Saturday. They love Saturday.
man.
Don't get me started on that. I actually have to play Steam games during that entire countdown.
Listen, look, I want to talk about this real quick because this really matters in that Rumble is dominating. Dominating top lane, dominating games.
Okay.
And part of it is they actually fixed this flamethrower. So
I don't think they fixed it yet. They're going to fix it.
No, I thought they fixed it. I'm pretty sure
I think they're going to still.
I think they're going to. I think it's in this next patch.
They're going to come back to it again, but they said that they actually fixed it to actually be doing damage, and now it's dominating too much.
Oh, I see what you're going. Yes, yes.
They did fix it, and now they're saying they have to nerf it because they fixed it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
But they did fix it initially because it was doing wrong underneath the hood, as they said. I believe it was Morello who said that. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, and by the way, another Elo buff stat, plus 9% on solo queue games when Rumble is picked for your team. That's a sick percentage. It's plus 9 compared to a 50-50 chance. I mean, that's sick. That is dominating as a champion. And he counters so many top lanes right now, and we're seeing him play over and over and over again that Riot finally saw it, was like, okay, yep, needs to change. This really needs to change.
Well, I think the really funny thing is they put in that fix, and everyone, like, I mean, you didn't really notice, oh, this fix, does that mean he's going to be doing more damage? Like, oh, he's doing more damage more consistently. But you don't really view that, oh, that's a huge buff to him. But a lot of, top lanes that he would previously lose, like Irelia used to be, a pretty hard counter to him. He can now go even or even beat her a lot of times. So, like, there was that coming away from that fix that, it was just hard to notice. Why is this suddenly happening? Why are these top lanes turning around? Irelia and then also Vladimir, too. Vladimir used to be able to go even with him a lot of times. It would depend on who got the earlier items. And more lately, Rumble just stomps him every single time.
Rumble stomps like everybody in top lane right now. And I never realized it was the Q damage. I just thought it was because more people were learning how to play him. But now that I'm reading Morella's post, I'm like, wow, that is true. He walks up in your face with Q, which is a flamethrower on, and suddenly you've lost a quarter of your life, and you're just what the hell happened?
It burns the hell out of you. Who was it I was watching? I forget which competitive game I saw recently, and the Rumble was dominating against a Malphite. I mean, it wasn't even close. Like in
Psycho Sid?
It might have been Psycho Sid. That's probably right.
It wasn't Westrice, that's for sure.
No, it definitely wasn't Westrice. That's not the way he's playing. But it was the fact that as I watch it, and I'm a Malphite player, that shield, every time it actually came back to regenerate, was gone in a split second. From either flamethrower or from, and I forget which ability it is, from the spear. Harpoon. It was sick. The harpoon, that's right.
Yeah, harpoon.
Electro harpoon.
It was sick though. It was like because he runs on a different kind of like energy. It's not really energy, but you get what I'm saying. Like
Heat.
I forget what they actually call it.
It's heat.
Yes, because if he overheats, he can't do anything for a little while. But you time it right and you lane it right, then as soon as you overheat, you're able to back into a safe position, go right back to harassing again. Whereas, everybody else, almost everybody else, relies on mana, and you just can't keep up. Like, he's got poke, he's got sustain, and by the way, when you can control his ultimate, it is devastating for team fights. If you know how to use it correctly, it is damn hard to use. Let me just say, it's not necessarily easy, but when you know how to use it right, it is devastating in team fights.
I hate to rain on the Malphite praise the Rumble praise parade, because I absolutely have loved Rumble for the longest time. I've had a couple, actually personal experience. I've had a couple of friends who played Rumble, learned how to aim the ultimate, and they were just dominant with him in top lane. I absolutely love the fact that Rumble's seeing a lot more play. However, I do have to note that Rumble, as much as he beats a lot of more familiar top laners, Vladimir being a huge one because of how much advantage he can take over Vladimir's early levels where he's weakest, he loses out to newer, unconventional top laners. I've seen him lose out to Darius a lot. I've seen him, we've been talking about the Malphite matchup. Rumble versus Malphite goes in favor of Rumble if Malphite builds tanky. If Malphite builds ability power, like we see in Malphite doing, he poops all over Rumble. Like, no better word. Last night, we were watching Curse versus Orb Gaming, and we had Westrice Rumble in the top lane against a Yuzuki Malphite. Yuzuki goes Sorcerer's Shoes, Doran's Ring, Wards, Health Potions, Abyssal Scepter, and at level 6, he had Sorcerer's Shoes, Doran's Ring. They're in a fight at level 5. They're trying to trade. Rumble's trading effectively. They both hit level 6. Rumble ultimates. Malphite goes behind the Equalizer, smacks into Rumble, and bursts him down in one combo.
Well, I think that's more of an outplay, but another thing you do see from a lot of Malphites is building GP10 items, which makes them weaker in lane, whereas you tend to not see that from Rumble players. So obviously if you're seeing a particularly early game build from Rumble, which we see from Wicked where they're rushing that Haunting Guise, then of course they're going to have an advantage over most Malphites who are going, Heart of Gold, Philosopher's Stone.
Right.
So there certainly is that. There's a lot of, itemization. I also feel like Darius is still one of the most overpowered top laners in the game, because not only does he trade with essentially everyone really well, but he also has some of the best gank assist with that apprehend. Suddenly the person's 500 range, further back from where they want to be, or you can save that for after they flash, and it has a longer range than Flash does. So Darius has a lot of things going for him as well.
It's just really interesting though, because where Rumble has kind of come in, that's a very good point you bring up with the GP10 items, because it has been a build that a lot of people have kind of used as don't want to necessarily say a crutch, but like a go-to build for the longest time. You go up in the top lane, if you have some sort of advantage, you generate a further advantage by going for these GP10 items. Once again, I hate to keep referencing it, but it's just so like prevalent in my mind already. Last night there was a certain fight that went in favor of Curse, where everybody just decided to go very, very quick GP10 items at the early stages of the game to try to carry them into the later stages of the game. We had in the top lane, I believe it was a Darius versus a Rumble matchup once again. Darius was an Olaf matchup, so it didn't really pertain to Rumble too much, but it's the same kind of thing where Rumble can build different items instead of building GP10 or Doran's items. Darius just built Doran's blades and completely pooped all over the GP10 build. Then the GP10s were nullified because of this. So Rumble's doing a really great job, like I said, taking advantage of things we're seeing a lot constantly out of tournament play, out of these players consistently. Rumble takes advantage of this. Actually, a while back, I did an interview with Darius. We were talking about his Kale in the top lane. He played a Vladimir versus Rumble matchup for a little bit in one of the games, and Rumble was a difficult matchup even before the changes he's had and the slight tweaks to his flamethrower and everything. Rumble is always a hard matchup against Vladimir, because Vladimir, he could kind of like squeak out to even, but Rumble just abused him at early level. Darius is talking about, like Socher said, with the Haunting Guys. It was ridiculous because the magic penetration just made anything that Vladimir could do to sustain absolutely null and void. So these items that are a little more unorthodox, like normally in a top lane, even on Olaf, we've seen, Hotshot GG popularize the Philosopher's Stone, Heart of Gold into Randuin's Omen, Irelia's, and play like a little bit more of a supporty kind of top lane bruiser. Rumble's capitalizing on this by taking early advantages by building actual items rather than teamfight items, and by snowballing his lane. His teamfight potential is within his skills, like you said, Hornet. Equalizer is devastating in a teamfight. If you can get that lined up with something along the lines like Orianna, seeing a lot more play, you get an Equalizer and Orianna attack command and protect down the lane, and even just pop the ultimate. That's basically one or two dead champions from the enemy team.
Yeah. And not to mention, that Equalizer does a lot of damage once you start building AP, and it's got the added slow onto it. You catch them in a line in a bush in the jungle, it is lights out. Drop an Orianna ult, drop a Karthus walking in the middle of them, they're slow, they can't get the hell out. And that's what's so great about Rumble. If you play it right and you catch somebody in a river in a line, it's just done.
Best part about him is he builds into double AP compositions, because Will of the Ancients is one of his core items.
Yes, he does.
Absolutely.
So, we've covered a myriad of topics tonight. Yes, the heart. the heart goes back to episode, 15.
I love Rumble.
We love Rumble, but I can tell by the look on our faces we are all exhausted, and talking about this makes you want to go play the game. So
exactly. I'm ready to go play. Screw this. We got Evelynn and Twitch to make viable. Come on, guys.
Yeah, Xin Zhao, Evelynn, Twitch, we're going for it. Let's go. I'm actually going to go ahead, and I know I said before the podcast, I didn't have it for any of you guys to hear, but I said whoever does the worst tonight has to take us out, and I'm not going to do it on who does the worst, but who talked the least, and that would be Sotir. So Tyr, can you take us out for this week?
The Ostlander Award of taking the least.
The Ostlander Award tonight goes to Sotir.
I would really prefer if Hornet did it, because I appreciate his voice a little bit more. When you send us those lists of things to read out for Audacity, I tried to do it, and then I listened to what I had said. I was like, this sounds ridiculous. So Hornet, if you'd please take us out, I would very much appreciate it.
Before we do that real quick, because I want to say real quick, I want to say congratulations to Team Dynamic. They won the ggClassic.
Yes.
There was some fantastic play. 3 of us got to cast in it. The ggClassic, I loved. I loved the format. I wish more of you out there had actually been able to watch it. I think it was that kind of weird times on the weekend where people just weren't, planning on watching it. I know a lot of Europeans watch tournaments more than some of us in North America do, but a lot of great play. Learned a lot of things. A lot of great storylines between Atlanta on Team Dynamic. Rain Man joining MTWNA. CLG Black really showed that they are really, really strong, and they almost came back from the losers bracket.
An 8-game series of the finals.
Full 8-game series. We had a best of 5 in the initial grand finals. If they won that, they go to best of 3. Well, they won that and took it all the way to the end. They won it 3-2 and then lost 2-1. It was fantastic. So I just wanted to mention it real quick because the ggClassic was an excellent tournament. And if you don't know who CLG Black is, I highly suggest you find out because they got some great players. Obviously, we got to interview not too long ago, and Link is a great AP mid. He plays a lot of the same champions that Froggen does, and I would say his Anivia was fantastic that we got to see. They had to start banning it because of how well he was doing.
Right.
Did any of you